Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a special weekend holiday edition of the Tower Casuals podcast. I am your host, Josh, and if I'm hosting, that means that we're either doing something really special or Corey has to take the night off. We're doing something special. I've got Sammie here with us, and we're going to be talking about the brand new Ghosts of the Deep dungeon that came out on Friday. Sammie, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
It was such a good run, and then you asked me to come on here, and I thought, I can't help but give my opinion on something that's as interesting as this dungeon gets.
This is a special episode in more than a few ways. Sammie is the first time that we've had somebody that's not in North America on the show.
That is true.
We are coordinating about 7 hours apart. So I was paranoid that I was not reading the time conversion correctly. With daylight savings time taken into consideration, so I'm glad that this worked out. Sammie also is one of the only people I know who has actually soloed a dungeon before. We just had a question about this on last week's show. I believe you did Spire of the Watcher, right?
I did, yeah. Spire. It was hard, but the feeling I felt when it was done, it was amazing. It was.
Now, was this a solo or a solo flawless?
It was a solo.
Okay.
Spire, solo flawless. That would have knocked me out. Yeah, it was hard, but it was all right. I always, I'm not usually into the whole like getting together with a fire team like all the time, so I mostly try and do things by myself. So sometimes I always wanted to solo one dungeon at least.
So walk me through. I know we're going to talk Ghosts of the Deep, and that's what we want to spend the bulk of our time on. But I'm so fascinated by the people who solo endgame activities, because that's too much for me to handle. If I feel like I need to take a Xanax while I'm playing a video game, it's probably too much for me. And I joked that I had to during Tears of the Kingdom when I was playing that and found the deaths for the first time. But the thought of soloing a dungeon or doing like 2 or 3 man raid just is too much for me. Walk me through what is that like? How many attempts did it take you? How long did it take you to find the optimal class to do? Because you said you did Void Hunter, right?
Void Hunter for most of it, and then
Okay.
the last encounter was Solo Hunter.
Ooh, okay, that's spicy.
It took a lot of attempts, because I remember it was a couple of weeks after Spire dropped that I jumped in with Warlock originally, because I play all 3 classes, but I'm mostly a Warlock main.
Right.
So I jumped in with Warlock, and I got past the first section, got up the Spire. That was not too hard, because the first section is just, it's just connecting the wires. There's a lot of places to hide. It's mostly what I found with the soloing the dungeon is you gotta play for life a lot. It's not a matter of doing it quickly. It's a matter of staying alive.
Right.
And when you get to the top where you fight the first boss, I'm blanking on the name, but it's the Harpy. That was when I realized that Warlock wouldn't work, because you get a well, but it's not, the movement isn't there. So I switched to Hunter with Void to get through it, and it became on that encounter mostly using Gear Falcon's Halberg and a weapon with Repulsor Brace to constantly be swapping Void debuffs and getting Overshield and Invisibility. And then
I was gonna say the Invis had to have helped there.
It definitely did, because there's just so many ads in, even like the Harpy is alright with ads, but when you get down to the part before the final boss, there's just so many ads there that it helps a lot more to use that. And then when it came to final boss, it was surprisingly quick. I think it was 1 or 2 attempts. I think it was the run where I finally beat the Harpy. Must have been like the run where I figured it out that Void wasn't going to work, because I got to the bottom, tried the boss, didn't even last until the first damage phase, and I thought something's got to change. And so I switched to Solar Hunter with Mini Tool and Incandescent and everything that just kept you alive with healing grenades.
Okay.
Um, and then it was just a matter of avoiding or destroying ads. And then the only thing I would do for damage on that boss is do all the sequence. Then when the Wyvern comes through, Blade Barrage with Star Eaters, and then that was it. It was Blade Barrage with Star Eaters, maybe a couple rockets, and then hide, and then
Right.
it was just a rinse and repeat. Um, so I think a solo dungeon is very much it's a different animal to the other activities that you can do in Destiny,
For
or
sure.
like a 2 or 3 man raid, because it's so much about with Destiny PvE specifically, it's a lot of big explosions and all these different debuffs. You're having fun, you're putting things together. You got this power fantasy, but when you're doing the solo activity, something like a dungeon, it's all about surviving. And then once you've beat the dungeon, it is the best feeling in the world. I think I was shaking in my chair when I finally defeated the boss.
Oh, I can't even imagine. So that was probably the last thing you needed for the title too, right?
I've still got to do Master. I haven't done Master Spire
That's
yet.
that's right. We talked about this the other day. I do like that for Master. I don't know if this is like intended or not. You could just like get a boss checkpoint and go in and do it.
Yes, I've heard about that. Yeah.
Because I have the credit for it, and let me tell you, I have not done the whole thing on Master. I have just done the boss. That's it.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's oh my god, I can't even imagine doing that. So I have a headache thinking about it.
Yeah.
Uh, well, we're
Yeah.
gonna circle back to some solo attempts here in a minute after we break down Ghost because you've attempted Ghost solo also.
I have. Yeah. Today, I had this idea because when we were doing it, I won't get too much into it because we'll talk about
Mhm.
the encounters. But when we were doing it, the first encounter, I thought this looks like something that if you had the right build, you could get through pretty easily by yourself.
Oh yeah,
Um, so I went in with um just for survivability, I went in with I hit my mic, a Solar Titan with the Lawley Splendor helm, um, and it it was it was surprisingly easy. And then you go down the line, and then you realize just how hard this dungeon is, especially when you're solo.
yeah. So let's just go. Let's go ahead and just jump right on into it. Ghost of the Deep takes place on Titan, of course, returning destination for this season's storyline. I think we all kind of had the implication or the idea that Xivu Wrath was going to be a big part of this dungeon after we heard her speaking in the first story mission that you do. And you're just
Hmm.
like, oh shit, this is the first time we've heard Xivu Wrath. She's actually yelling at us. Like, it's not, the lore was not lying when it puts her in all caps every time she's talking. This is like actually kind of terrifying.
Yeah,
To the point where I had friends asking, do you think that Xivu Wrath is going to be the boss of the dungeon? I'm like, there's no way. If
they
this
wouldn't kill her in
dungeon
time.
had been later in the season, possibly.
Hmm. It was so jarring too when that happened. It
Yeah.
was just so much of a because you're in the first mission and then suddenly this just booming voice comes out of nowhere, and I didn't notice at first who it was because I was too
Hmm.
busy, staying alive. And then it later on I read it was Zebra Wrath, and I thought, well, damn, this has gone from a season where I'm interested because it's kind of like oceany themed and I like that
Hmm.
aesthetic, but now it's got Zebra Wrath, who I've been looking forward to since I think season of the Hunt when she was first mentioned. I think.
Uh, yeah, that was the first time she really like took center stage.
Hmm.
I would say like in the background because of course she's the one who kills Sagira.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, her high celibate does, and I agree. I've definitely been looking forward to it. That was one of the big questions that Corey and I had going into Lightfall and into the seasons that would follow is how are you going to handle Xivu Wrath? Like that had to have been part of the reason why you split Lightfall and Final Shape into two separate expansions is you have to tell this story. And I think that the dungeon actually does a pretty good job at almost making you not feel sorry for her, but realizing that her and Savathun are just wildly different, not just in their like philosophies on the Hive, but in terms of their emotion, like the story that is told throughout the dungeon, as you find these fragments. I don't know if they're fragments or if they're ghosts that we were calling them
I
dead
think
ghosts.
I think that they kind of look like the dead ghosts you find on the
Mhm.
moon, but I think they're like little crystal things.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so too. We the Hive store memories in crystals, just like they used to use the corrupted light in the
mm,
Savathun Song Strike. I think that when you're finding this story out, and it's really the story of Xivu Arath discovering that Oryx is dead,
mm,
and just you hear the anguish and the sorrow in her voice. Like she openly admits we missed one fragment of 12 on our
yes.
way through. um but when you listen to the last fragment, you realize like she's telling her brother that she loves him. She's telling Oryx like, I love you, I love you. And you read some of the lore and you're like, wow, like they're kind of fucked up because like the Hive, when they were the Krill, they were set to be uplifted by the Traveler. That was, of course, one of the biggest revelations of the Witch Queen campaign.
Yeah.
This is kind of the next step in that saga of Xivu Arath also knows that they were played. She knows they were played by the Witness. And but as we all know from the lore of past seasons, she's also scared shitless. She's not going to go against the Witness. She's afraid to, but like I think this is partially her coming to terms with not just Oryx's death, but like kind of her role in everything, because the three of them killed each other continuously as gods for thousands of years. They were killing each other, and like
Mm,
this is her almost grasping that the sword logic is just bullshit. It's all bullshit. That the only reason they're trapped in this perpetual cycle of tithing and tribute and killing is to fuel the darkness. There is no actual reason for them, and if they had just listened and turned back and not gone down into the depths to the worm gods, they just listened to the Leviathans and gone back, they wouldn't have ever been in this situation.
mm. The, she's not. Is she connected to the? Does she follow the witness? I can't remember if
Yes,
it's ever.
yeah, Xivu Arath is 100%, 100%. She's basically the battle master,
Yeah.
because in Seraph, the whole reason we're having to stop the Wrathborn is uh, Xivu Arath is trying to get us into this cycle of war, not just for tribute for her, but because as we do that, it'll allow her to bring a battle moon through, like she did to the Cabal homeworld.
Yeah.
That's what she's trying. That was what she was trying to do in Seraph. We stopped it we didn't stop it, but Rasputin stopped it by destroying himself.
Yeah. And killing the war sats in the process, right? Yeah.
Right. Right, because
Um.
you can see the reflection of the Witness on the screen. Aramis is also paranoid, thinking that he's right behind her, and he's not.
Yeah. I think that's very much like listening to the audio we got. Um. It seems like you're right. Like she almost doubts the sword logic.
Mhm.
Um. That has been uh drilled into her whole life ever since she became uh the Zebra Wrath. Um, but I think this does leave open maybe a thing where she perhaps maybe after whatever we do in these upcoming seasons, perhaps she betrays the witness in a way.
Yeah, so I'm a little curious on this one, because I don't know that she necessarily betrays the Witness. I think that Xivu Arath may be a way to keep the Hive into whatever comes next. Because otherwise, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like the Hive have been so central to the Light and Dark saga that I think it would be a way to keep the Hive and the Taken as a part of whatever comes next, like a hypothetical Destiny 3. But at the same time, it almost feels like we're going to get into a the enemy of my enemy is my friend situation. I'm expecting Savathun to come back in a pretty big way. The Lucian Hive being such a huge part of this dungeon leads
Mm.
me to think that that's going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The Now I don't know if we'll get into the lore of the specific pieces of armor, but Savathun's body is mentioned in those
Mhm.
pieces of armor. And that also makes me think like, yeah, there's gonna be she's definitely coming back sooner rather than later, I think. Maybe even this season, like later in the season.
Mhm.
Um but if not this year, I would say definitely.
So I think that, and I do agree with you there. I think that's one of the major points that has to be done before we get to the final shape. I joked with Corey last week that Savathun has to be just like chilling off, so like just barely out of camera angles when Ikora and Kate are talking. Like, yo, I'm fucking here too, man. I'm here too.
She's just sitting on a rock, like
It's her and Finch's Hive Guardian are just like chilling. Like, what the fuck, man? I can't believe the Light Blade is chilling there. Like, what are we supposed to do, man? Our ghosts won't bring us back. What are we supposed to do? Also, like, can we reflect that we're talking a little bit about the armor lore? Ikora is like collecting a miniature army of hive carcasses in the city. That can't end well.
I think it all started with the Crown of Sorrow, right? She gets the Crown of Sorrow, which is like a hive artifact, and then she started this collection of dead hive gods.
She's got that. She's got Savathun's body. They confirmed that they're taking part of Oryx's body. And it's just the wildest shit that you can imagine. Like, they're doing like autopsies on Savathun's body. I'm like, bro, that's not going to stop her from coming back. Her ghost is out there, and you're like, yeah, no, let's do this. Let's do this, man. He rezzed her right outside the city. He absolutely knows where you're going to keep her.
We've been looking for an excuse for ages to get rid of this tower.
We're about to get there, if that's how it happens, and it's just like a whole bunch of hive gods coming up in the city, I'm gonna be so mad. I love while we're talking about like the idea of resurrection, how I mean we kind of talked about with the Light Blade. The Light Blade is like, that was kind of haha funny, like it was a tribute to the Dark Blade, like one of the most infamous strikes of Destiny 1, especially for the exotic swords. There are two enemies in this dungeon, the two bosses, actually. Ektar, the Sword of Oryx, who here is called the Shield of Savathun, who was from one of the Destiny 1 quests, from A Sword Reformed, where you are making your exotic sword in the Taken King.
Yeah, because you fight him and kill him in that.
You fight him and kill him in that.
Yeah.
It's an awful mission. Absolutely awful.
Yeah.
And then the final one that you fight, Sumua Unukro, is Nakru. Nakru would make more sense. Serves Nokris in the Strange Terrain strike, and you kill him. And now they're back as a necromancer, and it's like, oh no! Like, are we gonna have to? Is Nokris going to be like the Hive version of Tanyx down the line? Like, are we gonna kill Nokris for a third time?
Oh god, don't even start.
Like, Nokris has some pretty major daddy issues. Like, is he like gonna come back and try to bring Oryx back? But like, I guess let's jump into the overall dungeon. Like, we've already gone like full into this. There's only 3 encounters. There's 3 encounters and an extremely long traversal section.
It's long. I was
this expecting. This is the longest dungeon by far.
Yeah, I said to you. I think I said to you while we were in the dungeon. I said, "Are you sure there's only 3 encounters?" Because that section was long. I
was starting to wonder myself, but like I had looked at the triumphs and right after we finished that first encounter to start tracking the. I wanted to track the ghost that we were finding. And I was like, there's only 3 encounters. And then we're in this traversal section for like a half an hour at least. Partially because we're hunting these things, but also because it takes forever. You can't move faster in the water.
Yeah, you can't even you can't double jump or anything. It's just,
oh god, it's
you are anchored to the bottom.
I enjoyed it though. The first, so you immediately load in to the arcology. And you recognize where you are because the platform that's up above you is where you end the mission in the tank from the Vanilla Destiny 2 campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda Holiday gives you a tank, you blow yourself a path out. That's where you leave the tank, is right there. So it was kind of cool to come back and like have that be a full circle moment. That was one of the big critiques of Destiny fans when these planets were being sunset, was we didn't get to do a lot with Mercury and Mars. Or Mercury and Titan, excuse me. I'm so glad that we got to go back and get the most expansive dungeon, I would say, since the Shattered Throne. Like, since the very first one, this is probably the biggest, best, and longest dungeon.
I would say that, it's much bigger than, like, all the other... Like, in terms of, like, length and, like, how large it is, I think the only thing that I can think tops it is the amount of open space in Prophecy.
Yeah,
Um,
I would agree with that. Prophecy, and I mean, like, this is definitely like more linear than prophecy, but
yeah,
even that, like, the sands area is big, sure, but I can cover that in a sparrow in like 60 seconds. I can
yeah,
do the sparrow race fairly quick. This is just, man, this is another beast entirely. This really, like, the dungeons I think have become just as much of a showcase for Bungie's level creation as the raids have always been. Like, I think
mm,
dungeons with prophecy, we started seeing a shift towards that. Duality brought the interesting mechanic of, changing between the two realities. And
yeah.
Spire, like, I like Spire, but Spire kind of felt like a step down in terms of like the overall like design. I think it had a cool
No,
mechanic, but I think like overall it was just like, oh, we're climbing up a tower and then going back down it.
yeah. And it's sort of the way that it felt too. I feel like it was a little bit more on par um, with like Shattered Throne and Pit of Heresy than it was with
Yes,
Prophecy and Duality.
yeah, I think that prophecy and duality kind of like raised the game for what we expect in a dungeon. And I mean, I mean, even Grasp of Avarice, like
Oh man,
it
I forgot
feels like
about that.
this kind of like raised the bar, and I felt like Spire, like, as much as I like Spire, it didn't like quite hit that high. But
Yeah,
you load in, and you said it first. Nerd and I like definitely saw it too. It feels very Halo 1 when you load in
yeah,
with the forest and like the fake structures and everything. It feels like that, or like a forested area you would find in even in Infinite.
yeah.
Uh,
Because
it was very similar.
it reminded me of the first. There's that mission, not the first one, but one of the missions in Halo One where you arrive on the beach with the warthog, and then you're going into the Covenant structure through the trees.
Hmm.
It was very much like that. And you can tell. Like I'm sure that I know that some people still work on Destiny who have been working since Halo, or at least these people who worked on it now have inspiration from that. I'm sure that's what inspired sort of the feel of this first area.
100%. I mean, in fact, the director of Marathon, I don't remember if I mentioned this, he got his start working on Halo 2, specifically on outskirts of Metropolis in the campaign.
Yeah,
So yeah, there's definitely still some people of the old Halo guard still at Bungie, and this very much like, this was almost like this opening area is like a tribute to the past, and then everything that comes after is like, but let's show you what we're gonna do in the future with this game.
yeah. Let's show you the scope of what we are planning, because it starts small. You're in a small little wooded area. It's like
Hmm.
there's not much open space, and then when you get down there, sure you're in like tubes, but you can just see the scope of the rest of the
Well, we
of
found all
the
these sealed doors, and we are
yeah
like, oh my god, are we going to use this as like a hub area to come back to? Because I mean, there were symbols and everything else. Like, are we going to use that to come back? And then nope, nope.
yeah
You're going all the way down to the bottom. It is just, so you do that. You did an opening encounter. Nothing too difficult about it. It's pretty vanilla, pretty standard Destiny stuff. As far as you go, and we're like, wow, that was easy for a real encounter. Like, we already got a chest out of that. Like, you can summon a tank during it. We came to find out you found a
yeah
couple of the panels. I think you found 3 of them when we were doing
yeah.
it.
It was 3, and I found out later that you needed 4. So it was 1 that we were missing. Otherwise, we would have got that tank on our first run. Um, do it. I don't know if the tank has ever been figured out as to what it's used for. It's just sort of a spawnable thing.
I think it's just there.
Hmm.
It might be. I don't think it's used for the catalyst, but I don't quote me on that. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
Speaking of the
There's
catalyst,
many.
they did something really cool with this in the opening area where you start the catalyst thing. If you help somebody get the catalyst, it increases your chances of getting the exotic.
Oh, I didn't know that. That
I didn't
is.
either. It's kind of a hidden thing, but people were starting to figure it out that like everyone gets an increased chance, not just on that run, but like it's like permanently added onto your account, I think. And I,
Mhm.
I don't know if it's like for every person you help or just like the first person you help get it, but I thought that was a really nice touch.
Yeah. Yeah, because it definitely helps. I hope they do that sort of thing in other activities. They bring that into it because instead of catalysts, I could see something where, oh, you've someone in your fire team got dropped the exotic. You get a slight boost to you getting it next time.
Right.
Um, that would be much better, I think. But yeah, this we did see a lot of things in this first area that we thought like might have been something for the catalyst, because we saw like the panels, we saw the sort of bunker underneath, which we soon found was one of the memories, and then we saw the little hive statues that were just sort of tucked away in a corner. And I think, yeah, I thought this encounter was, I was surprised there was a chest. I thought this was just going to be like an opening thing, like the Grasp of Avarice opening when you're in the loot
Mhm.
cave. You don't get a chest for that, but
I found it fascinating that we go past this, and you have a little bit of a jumping puzzle area, and then you're in the water, and this is unlike the water. Granted, we haven't seen much water sections in the seasonal campaign, but I had this sense of dread and urgency that I did not have in the seasonal activity, because now when you hit the bubbles, they take a while to respawn.
yeah.
So
And
you
I
very
think,
much need to go one at a time.
yeah, I think you can. I think other people can grab the bubbles. Then they're not instanced for just you.
Hmm.
I think they're instanced. They're just randomly placed. So it's sometimes an attrition of who can get to the bubble first. And if you're without a bubble, you're gonna need to just get someone to res you.
Yeah, we died a lot going through this section, but
Oh
this
yeah,
section is
yeah.
I think it's slightly too long.
Mm,
By like maybe about 5 minutes, I think it's too long. Once you get down to the floor of the ocean and you get into, we were debating if this was a tomb ship or if it was a chunk of the dreadnought. It's a chunk of the dreadnought, just
yeah.
straight up. That I thought that was very cool. Getting in there, because it's like, oh, just like old times, man, just like old times.
There was a
Uh,
room that looked like the Oryx pushy wall. And I think I pointed that out while we were in
yes.
there. Yeah, and I was like, "Is this the Oryx wall? Was this the part
Oh
that
my
just
god,
fell into the
that would have
into Titan?"
I would have been absolutely terrified. I was just that's the one thing I did not want to see. Once I realized we were in the dreadnought, I was like, oh god, please not the wall of dicks, please not the wall of dicks.
Mm.
But you get all the way through, and you get to the next section where you have to jump down into the water, and you go down into it. And I think all three of us screamed simultaneously when we realized there was a knight in the water chasing us,
Yeah, yeah. There's just this Hive Guardian that we didn't see the
throwing
name.
fucking shields at us.
Yeah, and he had two of them, and it was like, "What's going on?" Like,
He's throwing two of them. I want to break down this second encounter. This is really one of only two things we can actually break down in this dungeon. I think
yeah.
the insane amount of health that this boss has.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
20 million.
That's more. Is that more than Nezarek, right?
Nezarek has 12.
Yeah, it's like almost twice as much as Nezarek, and you're
Twice as
thinking,
much, half the fire team.
yeah, you're thinking, how the hell are we supposed to do this quick? And also, the amount of ads in that room as well was incredible.
This was rough. We wiped once in this room. We took it so slow though. It eventually got to a point where we were sending one person into the water to hunt symbols, and like, hey, pick up as many as you can, or like try to get like one at a time if at all
Mhm.
possible, because as the symbols down there, so you have to use the deep sight. I love that the deep sight mechanic came back.
Yeah, yeah,
you
it
you,
was,
you
it was good.
you use the deep sight mechanic, and it causes these symbols to, it tells you what three symbols you need to go get. Well, for each symbol you pick up, a hive wizard comes in, but it's a light bearer, so you have to kill it and crush the ghost. The ads don't stop, guys. When I tell you they don't stop, it's the second you clear a wave, they're already back. They're
Yeah,
already
there's,
back.
I
We
think,
were standing, each of us was standing on a staircase at one point, I believe, and I would barely get through I would get through a full clip of Ikelos SMG, and I have reload speed, I have reload
mm,
perks, everything on, and I barely would get the gun reloaded before the next wave was upon me.
yeah, I think it's what, like 4 acolytes and a knight spawns every time you kill 4 acolytes and a knight, and there's like 3 sections with
Well, and
those
that's
in.
not even counting the onslaught of thrall that are coming either.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
whenever you spawn in the captains, because you use this, yeah.
oh, it's
Um,
it's it's so bad. But you get through this. You eventually get all three, and thank God the knight is not up there while you're trying to handle this. He's up there initially until you drop the knights, and then he gets out of there and spawns an ogre. You kill the ogre, see your symbols. Once you've gathered the symbols and killed the wizards, a big knight appears
yeah.
down in a relatively safe area. to where
Oh,
nothing can spawn in behind you. And I say relatively because it's not actually safe. You kill the knight, and it gives you the Wrathborn buff to drop the big knight's shield. This motherfucker,
oh my god. The shield, first of all, is that's a lot of
ridiculous.
health. That is a lot of health for a shield. Because I remember we instantly got into the Wrathborn thing, and I remember
Mm-hmm.
I think I instantly put down a well, and then we all started doing damage, and we realized it was a good like 5 seconds before we even reached his health bar.
I will say grenades are king for taking down that shield.
Hmm.
Because it's doing the continuous damage. I was chucking a fusion nade onto it, or excuse me, a vortex grenade, not a fusion nade, a vortex nade onto it, and that seemed to do a lot of work right there. That and I just started eventually shooting off a rocket at him.
Yeah, I've
I talked with Dealer, and he said that his group was using supers to break the shield.
yeah, I think I've heard that Arbalist breaks it instantly.
Arbalest
Yeah.
is bugged on both this and on the final boss. You can break the shield in one shot.
Hmm.
I think that's actually pretty fascinating. I will be using Arbalist. I'm going to do a couple runs after this recording. I'll be using Arbalist just to see, like, but we've had multiple groups in the Discord go in and confirm, yeah, no, one shot on
Yeah.
the shields, just incredible, the
Yeah.
incredible shit here. Um, this guy though, uh, to be fair, I think we probably would have had him in 3 phases if he doesn't hide behind a pillar during one
Yeah.
of them, and
Yeah.
if we knew what we were doing in the first. We kind of stumbled into it on the first our first phase. We
Yeah.
weren't
Because
sure what activated it. Yeah, we were just like, oh, big knight, we killed the knight. We're like, hey, there's a green puddle over here, and I'm on the other end of the arena. Like, okay, let me haul over here and get here, and oh, by the time I get here, damage is almost over. Uh,
yeah, my
yeah,
my
oh my god.
instincts, my instincts from Season of the Hunt, man. Because I used to play. I played that. I remember I mentioned in our run that I played that season too much.
Oh
Let's
my
say,
god.
and
Yeah.
and as soon as I saw that green puddle, I knew exactly what we were doing. But I just yelled down the mic, I think, to you guys, and we all just sprinted back over there, and we barely got some damage in, but we did it. It took us what was it, 5 or 6 runs around, or like to
It was
get the
four. It
damage
was
in?
4 or 5.
Four,
It was
four
four
or
or five.
five.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to ask now. We said we were going to come back to solo attempts. What was this encounter like solo?
Oh, I was about to get to that. Yeah. So, the best thing I could say about the solo version of this, obviously, I never completed it. The best thing I could say is that you can take your time. Um, my best strategy was Titan, with Lawley Splendor, and as soon as those 3 knights come up at the start, you just use your hammer, destroy them, and then kill the ogre, and then you go down into the water, and you only get one of the runes. Then you come up, you kill the wizard. Um, I remember I think I called them captains earlier, but they're wizards.
Mhm.
You kill the wizard, kill its ghost, and then dunk the symbol. Well, dunk your buff. Um, and then when the damage starts, that was when I kept dying. That was when I gave up on the solo for now. It was just the fact that the guy spawns in the center of that room, and the knight that gives you the Wrathborn pool also spawns next to him. So
Yeah.
most likely you're going to kill that knight, and he's going to be standing in the green pool with you. And when it's just you, and you've got that many ads, it is almost like it is next to impossible to get that shield down, into even the shield down in time to do any damage before you're killed.
So I've heard, bear with me here, that Lament does just silly damage to the boss in this room.
Mm-hmm.
That standing in a well with Lament, I want to say it was Dealer, was saying that they had 3 Laments and they nearly one phased him.
Mm.
They did 2 phase, but it was him and I want to say Rex. They were doing it as a duo, and it took
Yeah.
them 2 phases with Laments
Mm-hmm.
as a duo
Oh
on
my
that night.
god.
So I will be bringing Lament in on my next run
Yeah.
to see just how well it works, because man, rockets were so hard to use there, danger close, because I had to keep jumping out of the well and then back into the well so I didn't kill myself.
Yeah. Um, rockets. I assumed rockets were going to be the play because they're in right now. They're
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
meta, but rockets for this dungeon. I mean, probably we'll get to the boss in a bit, but not great. Because either you're too close to the boss or the boss is too far away and it keeps moving.
Yeah, it was, it's an experience. That second encounter, I want to say, was more brutal in terms of like trying to do DPS than any encounter in Root of Nightmares. As
Yeah.
far as a DPS check, that
It.
was wild. I'm just glad there was no enrage mechanic here.
Oh yeah. It felt like it felt a bit like they just scaled down slightly in terms of size a raid boss, like a small raid boss.
100%, 100%.
And I think even though it's hard, I like that for dungeons. We've always had they've always been that thing of like dungeons are like mini raids. That's what
I mean,
you would say to people,
yeah,
but
with one more encounter and like a slight tweak to the difficulty of the first encounter, I genuinely think you could have made this into a raid.
yeah, you definitely could.
This
You
and Root of
definitely,
Nightmares could have swapped places, frankly.
yeah, yeah. I think part of me wants to say that maybe it was originally envisioned as a raid, but I
Mm-hmm.
think they changed it. When they had to split, Lightfall up. If they had some vision of what this was going to be back then, it was probably going to be the raid. But then
Yeah.
splitting it up, they needed to make one with Nezarec.
So
Um,
we got to get to this final encounter. We,
oh
we
yeah,
we got we got to move on to the final encounter. Nerd got down there before either of us, and we just hear, "Oh my god, holy shit! You guys got to get down here." And you got down there, and you pretty much had the same reaction. And then I got there,
yeah,
seeing Oryx's head sticking out of the ground, and then realizing you can see his feet and his hands on the ocean floor. It's one of those jaw-dropping moments in Destiny, not just like for the lore implications, but like they fucking did it again. The set pieces,
yeah,
man. The final fight is going to take place basically on Oryx's carcass.
yeah. Because you see Oryx there, and I remember I said because I was in earlier in the dungeon I was like, well, this is Saturn's moon. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
Oryx will show up. I was doing that like that half joking, and I remember seeing Oryx for the first time. I remember I just started laughing
Mm-hmm.
because it was just it was incredible. Like seeing that there, and it was such an interesting idea for what they put there. Um,
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. You can see the necromancer with a hive ghost over there. She's trying to use the hive ghost to res Oryx. We know that that's what we're stopping. That's what we prevent in the dungeon.
mm,
And figuring this encounter out, I have seen nothing but praise overall for this encounter. Datto, I think, is the one who said it, that he was applauding the mechanics of it because he says, I think I was challenged more mechanically in that encounter than I was in the entirety of Root of Nightmares. And I'm not going to agree with that because I think the Planet's Room really
yeah,
can throw
yeah.
you for a fucking loop.
Especially
Um,
if you don't know what it is at the start. The planets is
or you
definitely
figure it
more
out really
important.
fast like we did, and then you overthink it and do the wrong thing for 4 hours. Which is exactly what our team did. I I would say this. I think that because we were just kind of running around. I was killing like random hive guardians in the tunnels and this and that. We just couldn't figure out, like, I was picking up symbols. We couldn't figure out what to do with them. And then you kind of did it by accident.
Yeah, because I remember it was we were
We
doing
had
that and
that
we were
little
going back and
circle.
forth. Yeah, I was like, because I kept looking at it as we kept going past and going to the different things, and I don't think we mentioned it until then. And I was like,
Yeah.
guys, do you guys see this ring on your screen too? And then we figured it out. It was like in the Witch Queen campaign where you use the deep sight to see the Savathun symbol. You had to
Yeah.
position yourself with deep sight to activate the thing, and then I think we wiped once more, and then I think it was me. It was either me or someone else that suggested we just do it. We try and move her by doing that at each of the different
Uh huh.
uh like parts of Oryx's body, and then that was how we got the symbols up. I think that was That's a really interesting mechanic because I remember
It was
seeing those
fascinating. Yeah.
in the Witch Queen campaign. That was used like twice, and it wasn't even used in like any interesting way. So
Well, and then on top of that, they were dropping the deep sight activation was shifting with that.
oh
So
yeah,
that wasn't
yes,
always in the
yeah.
same, but we eventually got to where we were leaving um one or two people clearing and the other was going in, or like one person to clear and two to go in and grab the symbol, like to go in and back up whoever was going to grab symbol. And eventually decided, well, that's not working. So we finally got to a point where all three of us were able to grab them together, grab all three symbols and come out and dunk.
Mhm.
But it's a little tedious, but once you do it, and I think once we have like optimal DPS, it won't be nearly as bad.
Yeah.
But I thought this was such a cool encounter. We 100% don't survive without a well, though. I want that
Oh yeah.
super clear. You need to have a well or be
Mm.
able to dip in and out of a bubble or something. You got to have
Yeah.
maybe a void barricade will help with giving
Full
you the overshield.
full arc resist on your stuff. You just don't
Oh
even
my
worry about
god,
reserves. Just
the
put arc
double! I'm
resist
so
onto it.
glad
Yeah.
you were like, "Hey, I'm gonna take a second to put on double arc resist," and we actually did it for that second encounter, and I'm glad that
Yeah.
we did. I eventually put on void. I ran arc in the beginning,
Hmm.
and I was happy for the speed. But that second encounter, I really just needed I needed the invis to be able to get to. I was dunking the far one usually, so I needed the invis to just run past everyone, dunk, and then get out.
Yeah.
But I could also like run around and do the finishers on everybody because every time I did a finisher, I went back invisible.
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah.
helped a lot here too.
Yeah. It was. It definitely helped. I think it's gonna. I mean, I haven't looked at any like guides or anything on like
Yeah,
Reddit or
me
anything like
neither.
that,
Hmm.
but I think it's gonna be a while before we figure out how to get this perfect because there is so much that needs like there's so much you need to take into account. You need to take into account survivability, DPS, doing the mechanics right. It's probably gonna take a while to actually get there in terms of what we need like perfectly for this for the final boss specifically. Um,
Another little like tidbit that I liked about this encounter, and I didn't realize this until I saw people posting about it in Destiny lore on Reddit. Vorlog, who is the knight that is chasing you around in this encounter that you have to kill in order to get the buff, is one of the old Court of Oryx bosses from the Taken King.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, he's the knight. Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't even put
yeah.
that together.
I didn't either. Something about him felt a little familiar, and I think it might have been Nerd who said it. I was like, I think he was part of like maybe the Moloch strike. I don't know. And then sure enough, Reddit was on the case, and they were like, this guy's he's a boss from the Orsinium court. I'm like, oh my god, this is wild. But
Yeah.
this is why I love so much of what Destiny does. I think that this is fascinating. I love it. Um, there is
Yeah.
there's another one that's mentioned, the adherents of Morak. Um, that we see one of them. One of the I think it's the what you call it, the acolyte one that you fight. I think
Oh yeah. Hmm.
is the one, but I think that Morak is. In fact, what I'm reading is it is the Hive Acolyte, but it's the one that you kill in the Psyops battleground on the EDZ. So I think all these callbacks to like previous activities you've done
Yeah.
are really fascinating. Like the storyline is Xivu Arath mourning the death of her brother, but it's Savathun's Lucent Brood that's trying
Yeah.
to bring him back.
I think it's sort of like two overlapping lines where you've got the main one which is
Hmm.
Ziva Wrath, the morning Oryx, and then you've got you know almost like the Lucent Brood has assembled a crack team of like people who've had anything to do with Oryx to go down there and help with this ritual.
Well, yeah, and
Um,
I think it's so fascinating because like obviously we know Savathun's not directing this.
mhm.
She may have had Savathun definitely knew her brother was dead, 100%. Knew her brother was
Yeah,
dead. It could have been something that her and her ghost talked about, like, hey, in the event that I die, before you res me, go try and res my brother. try and bring him back. And like, I've long been against this plot line because the Pit of Heresy also attempts to do this, also attempts to resurrect Oryx in a ritual.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating that we've now gotten 2 dungeons trying to do this. Like, third time's got to be the charm when they try it. But just the idea that if Oryx comes back, he is not going to know who he is, like everybody else. Savathun had this grand plan before she died with her wizards just off camera, essentially, and them and Umaru told her who she was, showed her, some of her past, this and that, and then tricks us into activating the grand plan. I hope that they don't go down this route of, hey, everybody's coming back. Yeah, we're bringing Cade back. Let's bring back Oryx too. Like, let's let the past stay dead. We've killed Tannix like 4 times. Come on, man.
I think now this is a really crazy thing to say, but you mentioned that I didn't put that together, that Oryx, when he gets rezzed, if he were to get rezzed by a ghost, he would lose his memories. And it is implied in, it's almost explicitly said in the armor pieces from the dungeon that they got his remains and they're shifting them back to the tower, or part of his remains.
Yeah.
What that leaves something open to, no one's going to be there around Oryx if a ghost comes and reses him. So he might be on our side.
Dude, if him and Savathun just pop up out of the city, I'm sorry, guys. I'm out. I'm out. This is where I draw the line. I'm good. These are 2 raid level bosses. I'm gone. You guys have fun with this.
Go send like 12 guardians out to do it. I'm out.
Yeah, our guardian's just like, nah, I did it the first time. It's not my fault. Ikora brought the bodies back to the tower.
I'm going to Enceladus so I can find out what Cade was talking about. I'm out.
Oh my god. Talk about like top 5 unsolved mysteries. I really hope that they circle back to that now. I need them to circle back in some really silly way. But I think that this is really just, I think this is great. This has great lore implications. The armor lore is pretty good. We're going to break it down in some future episodes of Tower Casuals, that and some of the weapon lore. But Ziva Wrath also almost, it's like she knows that we're going to find these memories, and she's like chastising and like cursing us for not taking Oryx's power. Yeah. Because since we killed him and we dealt the final blow, canonically our guardian does, we are entitled to take the power of his throne world, and we don't. We reject that power. And if we had taken it, we are a being on par in terms of raw paracausal power with probably Rolk in terms of how powerful it would make us. We're certainly on the level of Marasav at that point, but we chose not to. And I think that's an important distinction that isn't really made in the campaigns, and you have to kind of infer it through lore tidbits and, people breaking it down, like what do these definitions mean.
Thank you, Bife.
Thank you, Bife. Thank you, Mylan. We appreciate your service. I think that's low-key a trait that we don't talk about enough with our Guardian, is how like we don't want power. We're just give us a gun, essentially.
Yeah, like squish our boss into a gun and then give it to us.
Can I put this motherfucker into a gun? Like, we technically have part of Oryx's spirit in the touch of malice. Like, we're just kind of chilling here. So I think that's really cool. But while we're talking weapons, let's get into some of the drops. Yeah. This, I think, across the board has to be the best dungeon armor set, bar none, for all 3 classes. Yeah.
I remember I was freaking out when I first saw it, because those sets are some of the best. I would say that they're my favorite looking armor sets from any dungeon.
I think the only dungeon set that I would put on par with that is, I really love the Thorn set from Grasp of Avarice.
Yeah. I mean, the Hunter one's good.
This is such a wild turnabout from cowboy hats, though.
Yeah, we're in like Tex Mechanica, like leathers with like a big cowboy hat, and now we're delving into the ocean to pick up an armor set that looks like
you're one of Oryx's lieutenants. Yeah. I got the chest piece, the helmet, and the arms, and I've already crafted a look where I've got those 3 pieces. I've got my Star Eater scales on, and I've got the cloak with the void bow on it that was in Eververse last year. That's the current look I'm rocking. I'm gonna be rocking that for a while.
Mhm.
Season of the Star Eaters, thank God, until they get nerfed and my entire fashion just gets destroyed.
Yeah, I'm
Really,
so
really
glad.
liking it.
I'm so glad that Starfire. I don't have to run Starfire always now, so I can actually run good robes. But yeah, I got the helmet,
Uh-huh.
just the helmet for Warlock. So I built into like a just a there's those really good ornaments from Season of the Haunted, the like bone ones.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I didn't even think about those. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I've thrown the robes and the gauntlets from that on with there's a Lucent Hive shader that you could get in Season of the Risen.
Hmm.
You put that on everything, and then you just look like a member of the Lucent Brood without. It's like I'm at like a discount store version of the full set.
I'll
You
have to
know.
send you. I'll have to send a picture of or post a picture of what I look like in Discord. But
Hmm.
I'm rocking because the armor is very two toned, so I'm rocking like blue and like a tarnished gold look
Yeah.
almost.
Have
Uh,
you
looks really
have you
cool.
have you seen what some of like the color changing shaders do to this armor?
I
This
have.
dungeon armor.
It's fucking wild. I saw photo finish applied. I saw
Hmm.
the one that looks like the electrical storm. I saw that applied. I just think it looks really goofy on a hunter. You look like a fucking Smurf,
Yeah.
so I'm good.
Yeah. Like it took me a while to figure out how to shade that helmet because some of the things just make the
Oh my
helmet
god,
glow,
it's
and
so bad. It's
but
so hard to figure it out. So I had to go with the blue and the gold ultimately because I was able to get
yeah.
it to where it was like blue eyes and like a gold like faceplate.
Hmm.
Because the blue is always it's the undertone. So like for us, we have like a shroud of fabric across the chest piece, and that's going to be your second color. Your primary color is the plate, and then it's like a midriff cover though, so like it's like you're wearing like a sports bra almost, and you've got like your entire stomach exposed, so that's blue. Everything else is fucking gold. I finally nailed a look that was good. My girlfriend was teasing me because I was sitting there playing with shaders for like 30 minutes trying to get this to work because I found a shader that I liked and it didn't apply. It made my Star Eaters look like I don't know, like summer squash. That's the shade of yellow that it gave me. Where everything else is like tarnished gold. I'm like, God damn it! So I'm sitting there going through every single shader individually, trying to
Yeah.
find. I finally found one that gave it almost the exact same shade. It looks great. I love it. These weapons are kind of nutty though.
Oh yeah, they're incredible.
So we both got the SMG out of the first encounter on our run. That's the only weapon that I've gotten so far was the
Yeah.
SMG. Um, I got the new perk Discord on mine, along with oh my god, I'm already forgetting what the other one I got was. You got incandescent on yours, I believe.
Yeah, it was Demolitionist Incandescent, which
How
I've been
does that feel? It's a
well, I've been using it
750.
I've been using it pretty much all of today when I had the chance.
Okay.
It feels great. It's that 750. It's
It's
aggressive
solar
framing.
immortal.
Yeah, basically, it's that immortal class. But it's in the energy slot. You can use it with a horde, and you
Yeah.
can just take it into any PVE activity, um, and it will shred. And I haven't tried it in PvP yet, but I'd assume it'll do pretty much the same in PvP. And the incandescent perk just makes it way better because the mini tool has um that very specific fire rate and the very specific damage that it does, but with an
Hmm.
aggressive frame you're killing stuff faster, so it ends up with you're making more of these solar explosions, and if you've got a build built around Scorch, it's incredible.
Well, that's why
um
like I see a lot of people saying like, oh, I just don't use Ikelos anymore. It's not as good. Like, nah, man. If you have an art class, that thing with Voltshot is still disgusting. That's what I was running.
yeah.
It's in the same class. The all three of these are 750s. Immortal. I forget the name of this new one. I don't know the names of guns yet.
uh I
But
don't
the
remember.
dungeon essence, and
I've
it's
been
all
using it
classified
so
in the
long.
API. So like, I just tried pulling it up on DIM, can't do that. And Ikelos are all in the same category. I've seen so many posts going, well, Callus Mini Tools it's gone. It's being taken to the farm upstate. It's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I'll
You're
be
not gonna
honest,
see it.
I haven't thought about Callus Mini Tool probably in like 6 or 7 months. I got to a point where I was using Drang more than that when we take incandescent into consideration, but I really like
uh
that. I Oh, go ahead. Do you have something for us?
No, I was just gonna say No Survivors is the name of the
No
SMG.
survivors. Okay.
Um,
Yeah, this thing can also roll with ricochet rounds. I got that on
yeah.
mine as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's good.
I love
There's
that.
only
If that's an option, it goes on.
mm, there's only one weapon I didn't get, so and that was the glaive.
That's the
Because
glaive. That's the one that I want the
yeah,
most. Is the glaive? It's a fucking harpoon, Sammy.
yeah, it's called Greasy Luck. It's
I need
incredible.
it. It's so
Yeah,
great. I need it.
yeah, and every weapon in this dungeon is either solar or stasis. Um,
Yeah, kind
which
kind
is
of interesting.
yeah, because you've got because I today when I was doing the solo attempt, I got the new grenade launcher,
Mhm.
which is the only primary slot wave frame in the game.
It's a stasis wave frame, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It rolls with some interesting perks. I got mine with I think demolitionist and redirection, which I was very surprised to see on a grenade launcher.
Hmm.
Um, it does well. It is a very interesting thing because you can just it's that stasis wave frame that we got sort of from the heavy grenade launcher, but it's smaller. It's a smaller spread.
So I
Um,
don't like using breach loaders.
yeah.
How does this feel?
Uh, it f- it feels it feels pretty okay. I mean,
Okay,
it's more of a I would compare it to something a bit more like forbearance than anything else. It's not
that's a
as
pretty good comparison, though. Let's be honest.
yeah, it's not as it doesn't have the perks that forbearance has that can really make it
Hmm.
much better. But from what I've seen, it's a good option, and especially now that you can run the wave frame grenade launcher with something like any of the energy weapons that you can, like an energy exotic, like
Hmm.
I don't know why Sunshot came into my head, but something like that. You've now got that option.
Well, you can also
Um,
run the buffs now too that give you more power on like a stasis weapon or a strand weapon or
yes,
whatever. You can use those specific mods. And if you can tie those in with like authorized mods, then
hmm
it's even better.
yeah, I think if we can just talk for just a moment about
Yeah, yeah,
there's the origin trait that's on these weapons. Um, it is called restoration ritual.
yeah.
Um,
Hit me with that definition if you've got it pulled up.
so I don't have the definition, but I
Okay,
remember what it does.
okay.
Basically, when you get a finisher, or I believe it's revive an ally, you store another mag.
Okay.
So what that means is, uh, you, so for instance, on the, oh yeah, here we go. So restoration ritual, it reloads the weapon after reviving allies and defeating combatants with finishers, um, and it gives you a emergency reload. So what that means is, say you've got the SMG and you've got like 30 rounds in the mag, it'll give you an extra 30 rounds once your mag is over. So that works really well on something like the grenade launcher or the rocket, which I also got. That it'll give you that extra shot. Because I remember I got the rocket from I think the second encounter, and I was in the boss, and I was like, why am I firing two shots? This thing doesn't have like clown cartridge on it, and then I realized it
Hmm.
was because of the origin trait.
Well, and I've heard that with this you can get up to 3 rockets in the chamber if you get the right perk combinations.
Yeah, I think it's Envious Assassin on the rocket.
Yes,
Um, and the rocket can roll
that's
with chill
that's
clips, so that's good.
wild. That's absolutely
Yeah,
wild.
yeah. What truth? What kind of rocket launcher is truth?
It's funny that you say that. I had a friend he doesn't play a lot of Destiny, and he had one more Forsaken cipher that he could use, and he was like, I don't know what to use. He's like, I'm kind of eyeing Truth over here, man. And I'm like, I'm really glad you said something because let me tell you, if you waste it on Truth, I'm going to be really upset with you. It says
Yeah.
because tracking is on so many rockets now, we can craft you a better rocket than Truth. Truth was just the
Mm,
only thing that had the tracking outside of Bad Omens for a long while there, and then they just basically said, "Fuck it, we're tired of hearing the complaints about Truth. We're going to put tracking on everything. How do you like that?"
yeah.
Uh, I was like, there's so many better things to use than that. I was like, because if you like somebody's running Galley, you don't need it. You don't need the tracking. Like you're going to get the that and the Wolfpack rounds anyways, so you might as well just use that. Um, I was a little bummed to see that there's only 4 weapons in this dungeon, and then but when
I,
you realize it's only 3 encounters, I guess that's okay.
yeah. I thought they'd like because I think the other dungeons, do the other dungeons have more, or is it just because I think of
So
course Duality had those
yeah,
two
duality
menagerie
has
weapons,
yeah,
which
duality has 6.
yeah. So and Spire just get brought back some of the Seraph
Which were
weapons.
also world drops, which made me really mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I guess it just with how long it is, it felt
Yeah.
particularly egregious.
I think that is right because the last time we got like new weapons in a dungeon was through Duality, and I think that felt like more weapons because we had the two menagerie ones.
I mean, we
Um,
got new weapons in Spire. Spire, we got 4 brand new weapons.
I mean,
You got long
w-
arm, you got the Tex Mechanica
oh yeah, 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 yeah,
sidearm,
yeah,
the breech loader. You got a couple new weapons in there.
yeah. I'm gonna be honest, I completely forgot about the weapons from Spire.
I kind of did too. I haven't run it in like 4 months.
uh, but yeah, these weapons are pretty. I mean, they're pretty good.
Oh, they're great
But
so far. I've heard nothing but good things. The look of these weapons, though, you and I think briefly talked about this. This kind of brings up like this discrepancy that we've seen. Like, why does the end game stuff not look as cool as like stuff you can earn in the season? And like, part of me is happy that we have the taken weapons in season,
yeah,
so that
yeah,
everyone can go get them. Because I mean, more people are going to do dungeons than raids, but ultimately, it's still a small fraction of the player base that's playing these. So
yeah.
I'm glad that the cool shit is available for everyone, but at the same time, it was really underwhelming getting these weapons and being like,
Oh,
ew.
these are just like arcology themed
This
ones,
is gross.
and
This is as gross as the fucking hoodie you can go buy from Bungie Rewards.
I have not seen it.
Dude, it's like the same pattern as the weapons. It's fucking ugly.
Oh man, the only problem with these weapons is that I have not found a decent enough shader to put on these yet.
No,
They don't
not
really
even
shade
close.
well at all.
No,
So
it's so bad. It's so bad. That's like, oh,
my
we've had such
only
good aesthetics. We had Tex
yeah
Machina last time. We had like Leviathan and like bone themed in
corrupted
Duality.
Leviathan, yeah,
Prophecy. We had the old Trials of the Nine weapons, like, and it was that and like the Dido set, and
yeah.
like, ugh, this is bad.
I
This
I'm
is real
fine with
bad. This is
I'm
like
fine
the
with the
worst
models.
looking dungeon weapons.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the models. The models look fine. I like
Oh,
the
the
way that the
models are
weapons
perfectly
like
fine. Yeah,
look.
no problem with the
It's
models
just the
whatsoever.
colors. They just look. They should have. They should have just. The back of the weapon is very like white with like the arcology symbols on it. They should have just made that the whole weapon.
It's so rough. It's so rough. I really wish they would have just like. I mean, even made them. I understand theming them after the arcology. I get it. I
Mhm.
would have really liked if these were like hive themed though,
Yeah.
like Lucent
I.
hive themed, and I have to think that they're like putting that in their back pocket and like waiting for
Yeah.
what's it called to come back,
Mhm.
Crota. I have
Yeah.
to think that they're saving that in their back pocket. But like, damn, let us have two things that like have similar looking things. Like, give me 4 more taken. No one would have complained with 4 more taken weapons. I promise
Yeah.
you.
Just like. Just do like. I don't know. You've done the reckoning weapons. Just do like 4. Like gambit weapon reskins, like bygones. Just reskin that as a taken weapon and then
Oh
throw
god,
it in.
do not push me.
Uh,
If bygones comes back, I'm never taking it off. I swear to fucking god, I'm never taking it off.
Bad omens, just taken. It's good.
I know neither one of us has it, but we got to talk about it real fast. This
Yeah,
exotic is nuts.
I was gonna say the navigator.
The Navigator,
Um,
the Strand exotic trace. This thing, if you shoot your allies with it, you and your ally gain woven mail.
shoot your friends. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the other perk of it is I believe it
It
severs.
severs. Yeah,
It severs. So I believe that's God. I'm so bad with the definitions on strand.
that
Severing is
is
when they are suspended, correct?
that is suspend. Sever is, I
Got
believe.
you. Got you.
I believe sever either reduces their damage output, or it makes you do slightly more damage to them.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Either way, this thing is nutty. I saw somebody in the Discord. I want to say it was Hail Hydra. goes, oh great, this combined with the new warlock helmet exotic is going to be just us standing in a well with the trace rifles. And I was like, you'll get
Yeah.
your ass back in that well and you won't complain about it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Between that and divinity,
Like,
y'all better be running this shit all the time.
it's like they had an entire, like group of like people who made Warlock cry out like, I don't want to be the div bitch anymore. It's like, oh, how about you be the navigator bitch now with the cool little new helmet?
I mean,
And
hey, there's usually 2 warlocks to most raiding parties. You guys get to each run one. Congratulations. You
yeah,
don't want to be. Listen, you guys get to do this, or you get to run galley. Okay, so
yeah,
everybody's making a sacrifice here. They're like, I don't think Josh is making a sacrifice. He's over there beating everything with a glaive and his new exotics.
Warlocks, I hear you. I hear you, Warlocks. I promise, next dungeon or next raid, we'll probably get something that'll let us do any DPS.
Dude, they gave the warlock exotic. It's like you're a fucking aircraft carrier. It's so bad. You see it from the front, you're like, oh, that's not bad. Then you see it from the side, you're like, what the fuck?
It's like there's that. I don't know if you've seen Dune. It is the movie Dune. The wormhole ships they use to travel between different planets. It's just that on your head. Yeah.
It reminds me of that giant long ship, not the one from the Phantom Menace, but the one from the beginning of Attack of the Clones that Padme's handmaiden flies in on and gets blown up by a bomb. It's that fucking thing, but on your head. It's not long, it's wide. It's just like, what on earth am I looking at here? It's so bad.
I thought like they keep getting crazier. Like, oh,
I love it. I fucking love it. I know this isn't dungeon talk, but it's like, I love how wacky they're getting, but I have never seen 2 exotics more in my life than this and the Hunter Gauntlets, where I'm like, y'all better make an ornament next season.
You get big ass like you get floaties on your wrists.
Dude, I was like, why am I wearing these? I look like I'm a Titan. Why am I? These don't go with anything.
Yeah. It's they're going increasingly wacky with it, and I think like
I love it.
What happened? It shows just how far they've come, because like you look in D1, you've got like a helmet like Obsidian Mind, which is just one of the normal helmets but colored black, and now you're like a goddamn airship attached to your head, you know?
Yeah, you put it on and the Kenny Loggins just starts playing immediately.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is gonna show up to pilot your helmet. It's great.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, I wanted to rank the dungeons. If we have done this, it's been a long time. I don't think we've ever actually ranked them, though, because we haven't had enough to do it. So I want to go through and rank these. We're going to start with our least favorite, get to our favorite. As a reminder, the dungeons that we are ranking here are actual dungeons and not things that I classified as dungeons. I have joked in the past that I think that the exotic missions, such as Outbreak Perfected and Whisper of the Worm, should be considered dungeons, and that these should be raid layers. I'm not getting into all that here. These are what Bungie defines as dungeons. We have the Shattered Throne, we have the Pit of Heresy, Prophecy, the Grasp of Avarice, Duality, Spire of the Watcher, and of course Ghosts of the Deep. So we have 8 dungeons to rank here.
Oh boy,
we have 8.
We're about to get into some.
We have 7 or 8. I don't know.
Opinions.
Yeah, I'm gonna tally those up real fast. I'm gonna get a piece of paper here out of my desk so that I can keep track of what I'm saying. If I can find a pen in my desk too, that might be the next great challenge.
Yeah.
My girlfriend took all my pens to work. Wonderful. Whatever. I'm pulling up a note on my computer. So go ahead and start us off with what is your least favorite dungeon? What's the worst dungeon for you?
Oh boy, specifically for me, this is completely objective. I think it's gonna be. I want to say Shattered Throne, specifically because of how much it does not hold up. Like now, it is, compared to the other dungeons, it is remarkably easy. I mean, the boss can be melted in like a couple of seconds.
Right.
So I think Shattered Throne is probably the bottom there for me specifically.
So, Well, I also learned I cannot count here. We have seven dungeons. We have 7.
Hmm.
I miscounted my fingers. Um, for my last place, I'm gonna go Pit. I think Pit of Heresy is just. I thought it was bad when it came out. I think it's bad now. It was for me especially after waiting almost a full year, well, more than a year. It was such a step down from Shattered Throne. Johnny and I have talked about Shattered Throne so many times over the course of our friendship, and both agreed that for years and years and years, it was one of our favorite pieces of Destiny content ever. I think Pit's down here because it's not like particularly memorable for me. The opening section is just tedious, where you're learning the sword mechanic and everything, and like still to this day, everything like basically could just steamroll you in there. I fucking hate that. I don't like the ogre room. I think the ogre puzzle is still dumb. It's still dumb to this day. After
Oh yeah,
that,
yeah.
it's fine. But like the puzzle where you're like trying to find the wizards is dumb too. I don't know. I have the same complaint that I do about Shattered Throne. I think that the boss dies way too easily. I think Zul'Mok's a little bitch.
Yeah.
So I've got Pit down there. What's your number 6?
My number 6. My number 6 is gonna be Pit of Heresy.
Okay.
And the reason I put it above Shattered Throne
Mm-hmm.
is because I'm just a sucker for the Hive, man. I
So you're
I
the problem. Okay.
I've been eating good in these last couple of
God
years. We've been just getting
damn.
so much Hive stuff. I've been good. But no, I just I like the mechanics of Pit of Heresy more than I do the Shattered Throne.
That's fair.
Because I like the Hive symbols and like being like being in there, and I just like the lore of the pit as well, and stopping the initial ritual to bring back Oryx, and the boss was just so incredible when I first saw it. Compared to Shattered Throne, I think personally, Pit of Heresy is going to be my second to bottom.
Yeah, I've got Shattered Throne in at number 6. For the same reasons you just gave for Pit of Heresy, I'm going to give for Shattered Throne. I like the maze in the beginning. I think that's cool. I think Wish Ender was a really awesome quest to tie into it. You get the history of Sigurito. You get the Curse of the Dreaming City. This is the end of the Curse of the Dreaming City and the 3-week cycle, and then it repeats. Duel and Karu is kind of like the first bastion into like the Savathun storyline that we really get.
Hmm.
And at the same time, you're getting the lore book kind of concurrently with how things were happening, where she is impersonating Eris to the Guardian.
Yeah,
I think that all that's really fascinating. I think from like a lore perspective, it's really cool. And I think the fact that they tied an exotic quest into it was really awesome. That was kind of a hint of things to come.
yeah,
But totally agree. These two, I think we've evolved so much since Forsaken and Shadowkeep in terms of
yeah.
our end game content that yeah, these two got to be at the bottom.
I
What is
think
your? Oh, go ahead if you got final thoughts here.
I was just going to final thoughts on both of those.
Yeah,
Um, I think if they're going to do anything after they've refreshed all the raids and things, those two dungeons need a little touch up. Make the encounters a little harder. Maybe throw like a couple more enemies in there. Change the loot so it's not just world loot. That's the only thing I could see making those
and
dungeons
I think
go up
that's
the
the
list
reason
improved.
why these two have to be at the bottom too. Is they don't have any unique loot outside of you could get the pulse from Pit of Heresy, and that was it.
Hmm.
Um, the fact that they did not have special loot in these is still, I think, really shameful. I'm not saying they need to go back and add it. I'd rather just get stuff added to new content, but it makes it to where why would I want to go back and rerun these anyways? Unless I'm trying to get like Wish Ender or Xenophage, why would I want to go back and redo these?
Yeah.
Even for like my weekly pinnacles, I don't care. I especially don't care now.
Hmm.
You're number 5.
Um. Okay. I'm ready to have the entire community scream at me. I am going to be picking Duality for my number 5.
Oof!
Um,
Oof! Ooh, that hurts me. That hurts me in
and
my heart. Oof! Okay, I'm ready to hear the reasoning.
Duality. The Cabal have never been really my favorite. My favorite,
Oh, you don't like
but
fighting space turtles?
no, especially phalanxes. They can go away. I don't. I hate that. Anyway, but about the actual gameplay of it, I thought it was cool. I thought finding Callus's memories and him talking to Keitel and then finding Keitel at the end as like a nightmare of Keitel, you know, I thought that was really cool. I thought the aesthetic of the dungeon going between the different worlds was pretty cool, but I didn't like the fact that that dungeon requires 100% of your attention at all times, like the mechanic of it, and the amount of timers in that dungeon really irked me. Now I know some people say like, you can do it really quickly, but in the times that I have done that dungeon, there has just been a lot of, sort of there's been a lot of times where I've either not got the timer correctly or I've gone into a room full of Cabal, my least favorite enemy to fight, and not been able to go up. So I think it's some may call it a skill issue, but I call it not my thing. So that is my opinion on duality. That is my spicy take.
Oh
Uh
God, that's so spicy. I feel like this is an episode of Hot Ones.
yeah. But I will say it's about on par. It's about on par with the next one up, which I will talk about.
So I think for me, I'm gonna put Grasp here. Um,
Okay.
this is I don't know if this is gonna be an unpopular take. I like Grasp for how silly it is. I think that the pirate theme was just completely out of left field here, especially when they did a pirate season a couple of seasons later. But um, I understand that this is the dungeon in the fabled loot cave. This is very clearly something that like doesn't really have a huge prominence in the story because
Hmm.
it's just it's meant to be kind of goofy and a celebration of Destiny as a whole.
Yeah.
Um, I like that. I don't like that Gallarhorn is tied to this. I actually really hate that. I think obviously it's a way to give everybody Gallarhorn. Um,
Yes.
it
Uh,
dashed and this is partially my own fault. This dashed my hopes of ever getting the amazing mission where we craft Gallarhorn with Lord Saladin
yeah.
in
I
Rise of
was
Ironback.
I was gonna say like that should have been the quest, not talk to Shorhan and then do the dungeon and then talk to Shorhan again.
Yeah, that really upset me. I think that was
Yeah.
so cool. Like we had a little standoff in Bannerfall, and then you go and do like this like stealth mission, basically going through the Cosmodrome for an admittedly like kind of challenging fight. And then you
Hmm.
get unlimited Gallarhorn to fight off an army of walkers. It was incredible. I long to do that again. I don't like the loot in this dungeon. I could give a shit about
Fair.
AS Luna.
Fair.
Matador 64, okay. I couldn't even tell you what the third gun is. I don't even remember anymore. Nor do I really care. I think that the Thorn armor is cool. I enjoy the Thorn armor. I think it's really cool. But that's about it. I think that this dungeon is just kind of tedious. Doing the jumping sections, getting up to the first real encounter is a pain. Not in like a bad way. We've definitely done worse jumping puzzles. Um, the mechanic isn't exactly fun. What kills it for me is you have the Sparrow race, and then immediately after the Sparrow race, you have a section that there's no way to make it go faster. The whole
Hmm.
area where you're deactivating the shield is just a gigantic pain. I fucking hate this thing.
Oh yeah. No, I get it.
I
It's
hate it.
it's it's a long encounter.
God forbid that
Um.
you do something wrong, then you're extending your own time on this. It's awful. It's awful. I don't enjoy it. I don't have fun. The boss I will say I like the boss fight. I actually think the boss fight is like stupid fun if you get swords and just beat the shit out of him. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But overall, I gotta put Grasp here.
Hmm.
What's your number four?
My number four. My number four is this is where I put Grasp,
Okay,
and it is more of Duality and Grasp on the same level for me. It's
that's
less
fair.
of a one of them is worse than the other, but it's more of these are two dungeons that just didn't gel with me specifically, and had like this and had like the mechanics weren't as fun or as rewarding as the dungeons higher on this list.
I agree.
Um, Personally, Grasp was very like you said, it was very it's very goofy inherently. You're going into the loot cave, you're following the story of a guardian who went mad because he had too much loot. Um, or that he wanted to hoard as much loot as possible, and like you're taking down a fallen pirate captain at the end, and then like grabbing the loot from it. But I did like the return of some of the D1 weapons because 1,000 Yard Stare is it is my baby. I love that sniper. Um, and
That's the gun I was forgetting
yeah,
about.
1,000 Yard Stare, yeah. And the armor sets, they're pretty good. Yeah, the Thorn theme is amazing. And yeah, those like the boss encounter and I think the boss encounter is my favorite part of that. The
Hmm.
Sparrow race was very impromptu and very fun the first few times you did it, and then it kind of just becomes
It's
after a
tedious.
while this
It's
this sort of
tedious.
tedious thing. Um, I think the reason why I put it here and not lower down is because of I think it's an incredibly fun dungeon the first 3 or 4 times you do it, and then you get into it more and it just becomes this sort of
It's still the best
tedious
Artifice
thing.
armor farm we've ever had.
That is
Doing
true.
that
That is
ending
true.
into Witch Queen was just amazing. I
Hmm.
farmed a whole set, and I've never felt the need to go back to more.
Yeah.
Especially now with it not having elemental affinities, I just don't feel the need to go back.
Yeah.
I would say for me, my number four is I'm going to do the inverse of you again. I'm going to put duality here. Um,
Okay.
Duality, I feel like almost should be where I put grasp. And to be clear, I actually really love duality. Genuinely, I would probably have it in my number three slot. It's definitely not going higher than number
Hmm.
three. I would have it at number three, but the bugs. This dungeon was buggy as hell when it
Yeah.
first came out. It's still broken a year later. The phalanx, we joked about the phalanxes already when you ranked it. The
Hmm.
phalanxes are awful. The mechanic that takes you between the realities, I think, is awesome, but it's so
Yeah.
buggy that it'll just randomly kill you. I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy any of that. That's not fun to me. The bells are so finicky. They
Yeah.
can be activated by just like something happening to an enemy near you.
Scion snipers as well.
The
Those
Scion, yeah,
another
Scion
enemy. Yeah.
snipers are terrible no matter what difficulty you're doing it on. I love the story of duality. Is my problem. I like the story of it, and I love the loot,
Hmm.
which is why I would make the push to put it at three. But I can't in good conscience do it when it's still that broken. It's really hard for me to put it up there.
Yeah.
I also think Hearth Shadow is an awesome exotic that really doesn't do a lot.
They need to tweak that exotic, I think, and then
I
it
would
would
agree.
be a lot better than it is now. But it's a really good looking exotic, and I agree. For the exotic alone, duality does have that as a
So
merit.
let's move on to the top three. I have a very strong feeling that we have the exact same order on our top three. But what do you
Okay,
got? What do you got at number three?
we might not. Number three for me is Spyro the Watcher.
Okay, I've got it at number three for me as well.
Yeah. Number three for me is Spyro the Watcher. It's a great dungeon. It's not the best dungeon. It's it's quite linear and it takes a little you can go through a lot of it quick, but then it slows down. Um, I think the mechanic with the Arctrician is quite fun. I think that's a good. It adds an extra layer of difficulty to certain things,
Mhm.
like the boss, where you're in that room with the supplicants on the boss, and the two giant hydras, and or is it the hydras? Or yeah, the hydras,
Yeah, it's
and
actors.
you have to in a certain amount of time um get the right shoot the right things with your Arctrician buff. I think the Arctrician makes it more fun. The loot is some of the best looking loot, I
It's
think.
some of the best looking, but I can't tell you the last time I broke out a gun from this dungeon.
Yeah, I think the only gun I've actually I think I've kept from this dungeon is the LMG, specifically because it rolled with target lock and I just kept it.
Interesting.
Um,
I've kept the scout and the sidearm.
yeah, the armor set incredible. Cowboy hats, everyone wants a cowboy hat.
As a
Um,
hunter, I was a little underwhelmed, but I get it.
yes, I've heard you sing
God.
Sing from the rooftops about how you wish it wasn't part of the cloak,
Yeah, it
which
better.
I
Yeah,
don't know why
God,
they didn't do that.
what an absolute catastrophe.
Um,
Well, I guess I'll go ahead since we had the same number three. I'll say my number two first. I have prophecy
mhm.
at number two.
Yep, we've got the same top three.
I had a feeling. I had a feeling we were going to.
Mhm.
Man, I don't know if I've ever been as slack-jawed in something with Destiny as I was when I walked into the cube room and saw
Yeah,
how it was going to move. I thought that was really cool. And then I was topped 5 minutes later when I got into the part where you pull out your sparrow.
yeah,
That
that
is
was.
some of the wildest, wackiest shit. I never dreamed I would see something like that in Destiny.
Mhm.
And here we were with it. It is one of the coolest things that they've ever done. I think Prophecy already had a rewarding loophole. Part of it's the fact that you can get 2 armor sets out of it, right?
Yeah,
I think the 2 armor sets were awesome. I think that you had a good weapons suite, and then they refreshed the weapons suite because that's where you got the Icolos
yeah,
weapons back the first time.
yeah. It
Uh,
was the Icolos, and then it was like a few of the escalation protocol.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the other escalation protocol weapons.
you
Yeah.
got a lot of that stuff, and then they refreshed the loot pool a year later, which they've never gone back and done to another dungeon. And they brought the Trials of the Nine weapons in, giving you another reason to go run it.
Mhm.
More than that, I can't tell you what the fucking story of this dungeon is to save my life. I've tried. I've tried for years to figure it out. It's the Nine are testing you or some
Yeah.
bullshit. It's advertised as learn the secrets of the Nine. I didn't learn shit. I didn't
Yeah.
learn shit from this dungeon, but it's so cool mechanically that I don't care. Duncan modes, sure, I'll do them. I don't care. This is such a fun dungeon.
Yeah, we love
Yeah,
Gambit.
the physics are a little broken, but it's still so fun that I can't help but love this dungeon. This is,
Yeah.
for years, has been my go-to example of making a creative encounter in Destiny that feels unique, that feels like it's not tied to any one thing, that anyone can go in and experience as a dungeon.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
it's
yeah,
got that thing of the Nine as well. This sort
yeah,
of like mysterious aesthetic. You know, the Nine have been sort of planned since the beginning of Destiny. I mean, like I think it was for the Destiny announcement. I think it was Luke Smith walked on stage wearing a hoodie with the Nine symbols on it. You know, like the Nine have been secretly behind a lot of stuff in Destiny,
yeah,
and finally having an activity other than Trials of the Nine to jump in, and the Reckoning was it
yeah,
to jump in and really explore the Nine as a concept and what the architecture of the Nine is. It's just it was incredible.
yeah. I think that was really cool. That was a sign of things to come because this was we got Arrivals released. This so the week that this came out. In fact, I think it was the day it came out. You got Arrivals. Then we got the Prophecy Dungeon, but we also got the announcement of we not only heard about Beyond Light, we got the Witch Queen and Lightfall both announced at the same time,
Yeah.
which is just wild to think about. Like because this was when we were all locked down. COVID was going strong. In fact, Corey and I literally started the show off the back of these announcements. Um,
Mm.
so that'll always be like a crazy week in like early June that happened. It was a little bit later than we would normally get the expansion announcement, and it showed a shift in the tone of how they were going to do a lot of things for the franchise. I think Prophecy was a harbinger of what's to come. Like it was so well received that we got
I mean,
weirder and weirder shit until we get to our number one choice for both of us, Ghost of the Deep.
yes, Goes to the Deep,
I don't know what we can.
incredible.
I don't know what we can possibly say that we haven't said already. Like there will be complaints. It will be debated if this can be the top dungeon with how tedious the underwater sections can be. But I think that the two real encounters in this dungeon really come in at the 11th hour to save it. Um, are
Because I
they
think
stressful? Yes. Are they memorable? Absolutely.
mhm. I think it also takes like you know you think of the concept of like a dungeon in a like an MMO,
Mm-hmm.
and it's this you dive into a big place, you go in there, you get great loot, you fight bosses, then you get out and it's great. I think that both literally and not, this feels like quintessential dungeon. You're
Yes.
diving in literally into this big open space that we've not seen before, really, because we never really explored the arcology. Then we get through the encounters. We fight these great bosses that are, we've seen them in the past in the lore and in game. We get great loot from it, and then at the end we fight a boss who's trying to bring back Oryx, and I think that makes it such an incredible experience altogether.
I think it tells the most complete story of a dungeon too.
Yeah.
Most of the dungeons feel very supplementary.
Mm-hmm.
Like Shattered Throne is very supplementary. It's kind of the end to like the Dreaming City storyline that we had in Forsaken. Because after that's when you realize you're in a time loop. Pit of Heresy just kind of stands on its own. You go back in to do some Xenophage stuff, but largely kind of left on its own. Prophecy, whatever the fuck is happening there in Grasp of Avarice. Okay. Duality is where I think we saw a little bit of a shift towards we're going to tie these into the seasonal storylines, and these can stand on their own without the other stuff and kind of give you an insight as to what was happening that season. So like with Duality, it's going into Callus's mind, and they make that very clear.
Yeah.
With Spire, it's you're trying to prove Osiris's visions that he's having after having been possessed by Savathûn. Ikora still doesn't trust him, this and that. This is where this kind of sets us on the path to Neptune with this dungeon. This one, I think we're going to look back the same way eventually and go, wow, that still had a lot of the this had a lot of the mechanics of the season with the underwater sections with the bubbles, this and that. But this kind of also is the next step of the story of the three sisters. And I'm very, very interested to see how this plays out the rest of the season, how this impacts it, because we're still so early in this. I think that's the only thing I have on the knock. The only knock I really have on the Dungeons of Destiny is I wish they did not drop the dungeons the first week of the season anymore, because I think that would blow your storytelling possibilities wide open. I would love for a dungeon to be the conclusion of a storyline of the season.
I was gonna say, instead of having that last week mission, they've started doing drop the dungeon then, because then everyone delves in. Not last week, but last few weeks, start the dungeon there. Everyone delves in.
I think it would be really cool if even
story.
that was the thing that you get off of the last of the seasonal quests. But I understand why I wouldn't have. They want everybody to experience the bulk of the story, because even if you don't do the dungeon, that stuff is still explained in other areas, in other texts and other conversations. What happens in them. So I'm curious to see how they address this, because this is a pretty big swing to take 3 days into a season. Savathûn's brood is trying to resurrect Oryx while Savathûn is dead, and we're hearing Xivu Arath literally crying over it and cursing our very existence.
I think it makes you more. I think it certainly makes me more excited to see where we go with Xivu Arath in the seasonal story.
For sure. For sure. And of course, we're gonna be covering that here weekly as it unfolds. We're gonna be reading some more lore. I'm gonna be doing a lot of dungeon lore reading here over the next couple weeks so that I can fully map out how we're going to do that and season that a deep lore at the same time. We went from having lore that really couldn't be easily talked about in the context of 10 minutes to, oh my god, there's so much now. But that's going to do it for us here. Talking about Ghosts of the Deep, we can go for an hour and a half, a lot longer than I thought we were going to go. Sammie, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
As always, you can find us hanging out in the Discord. Lots of great stuff going on there, and best of luck on soloing this dungeon.
I will try my damn best.
Oh god, I can't even think about that. So from I'm gonna get us on out of here. From me, from Corey, from Sammie, thank you for joining us, and we will see you Starside.
Bye.